Nutritionist Deepa's podcast. Another episode, another day as we are counting hours. But I'm super excited. And who knew that in during this quarantine period, I will be able to visit somebody not from next room or house or Canada or Mexico, but somebody from all the way to Australia. And that's the beauty of this podcast interview. I have Susie Garden here, who is joining me from Brisbane, Australia. I hope I'm pronouncing everything
Yes.
correctly here.
Perfect.
And Susie is a registered nurse and a functional medicine practitioner. And our paths crossed just last month, and here she is on the podcast. And the
Yes.
topic today is phenomenal. It's about stress, trauma, managing mental health uh, through diet and mind and body techniques that she's going to show us. So this is right up my alley and your alley. And I welcome Susie to our podcast. Thank you, Susie, for virtually traveling and joining us.
Thank you so much, Deepa. That's a lovely introduction. And it's my absolute pleasure to be here today. Yes, the phenomenon of technology, being able to sit here in my study in my home in Brisbane while on lockdown and able to speak to you in Chicago is amazing. So at least we can still do this, right?
Absolutely. I mean, that's the, what can I say, silver lining of it. Just imagine if we were without
I know.
all this, it would
I
be
know.
miserable.
Yes. Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
so, Susie, before we get into the topic, can you give us a little bit of your life story? We like to hear stories,
Sure.
how and why you are doing what you're doing and everything that you do.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I started off my career as a registered nurse, which was amazing. I absolutely loved that job. And I ended up working in the operating theatre for a number of years. And then I kind of realized that I wanted to do something more. And I started working in occupational health. And I worked in a chicken factory, which is pretty out there as an occupational health nurse, and that was a pretty eye-opening experience. And from there, I went into the pharmaceutical industry. So I've done quite a few different kinds of jobs. And in the pharmaceutical industry, I worked as a sales representative, and then I kind of worked my way up the corporate ladder and ended up in a national sales manager role, which involved travel almost every week. And Australia is quite a big country. Australia is as big as the United States on a physical scale. Our population is a lot less, but the travel involved was quite extreme. And I had a team of representatives that I managed. So I was constantly traveling to help coach them and to meet customers. And I was living in hotels. I was eating, hotel food, restaurant food, airline food, which is all pretty,
Fun stuff.
some of it tastes good, not the airline food. The restaurant food tastes good, but yeah, we know that that's loaded with sugar and salt and fat to make it taste good. Not a lot of nutrition in there. And even though I was a nurse, we didn't get a lot of nutrition training. So I just ate because I was bored. Like, you sit down on a flight, they give you a plate of pretty ordinary food and you don't have anything else to do, so you eat it and then you feel horrible afterwards, but it is what it is. And I'd get to my hotel maybe late at night, and a female in a city that I don't know very well, I'm not going to go for a walk around and do exercise. I'm just going to sit in my hotel and eat room service. And I found I had no routine. I wasn't sleeping very well. The job itself was quite stressful. There was the physical stresses, and of course, sleeping in air conditioning all of the time, working in air conditioning all of the time, all of the stale air in the aircraft. And yeah, it was just not a
very
really great
toxic
environment for
environment.
long term. Oh, incredibly toxic. When I look back on it, I go, gosh, when you're in it, you can't really see how bad it is for you. And I did this job for this national job for about 5 years.
Wow.
And I was getting to a point, yeah, it was awful. I was getting to a point, I was very stressed. I was not feeling great about myself in terms of my energy levels. I wasn't sleeping very well. I was getting really, really burnt out. And I ended up getting a really bad flu. And that flu absolutely just kept me in bed for 2 weeks. I could literally not get out of bed for more than half an hour without being absolutely exhausted. And it was the first time in 5 years that I actually had time to think and to assess my life and what I thought about my life. Yeah. And the thing is, when you're in an environment like that, you know, the money is really great. You get to go to some fantastic conferences and meet some really interesting people. And so from an intellectual point of view, I was really challenged and stimulated, and I loved that. But it was just, it felt like, and this is the thing with burnout, you just get this real lack of motivation, this real lack of passion for the work. And it was really tough, because when you're in that situation where, I mean, I loved the people I worked with, and there was a lot about the job that I loved, and the money was great, but I was just burnt out and just not happy. And I started to get very anxious. And it really hit home for me one day after having this being unwell. I was at just a normal local shopping mall, and I started to have a panic attack. I just started to feel like I shouldn't be here. I need to be at home. I need to be doing work, which was so weird because I had no, work to do on the weekends. I was just absolutely felt like I needed to get out, and it was like a panic, a fear that I just needed to get out and not be there. It was just the strangest thing. And after that, and after having that time to really think about what I wanted to do with my life, I realized that it was just not sustainable for me to keep doing what I was doing. But that was really scary, because to walk away from a really well-paying job into what, it's very hard. So I knew I wanted to stay in healthcare. So I started studying nutrition.
Okay.
And I could do that online while I was still working. So that was really great. And I also did my yoga teacher training, because I'd been doing yoga for about 20 years. And I just thought, I've been doing the asana, the physical postures and the meditation, but I didn't really understand a lot about the philosophy and the history. So I wanted to do yoga teacher training purely for that.
Sure.
Never ever thought I would teach. I just took a couple of weeks of annual leave and did my training over in Bali, which was...
Now I have a question.
Yeah.
When you made that transition, you were completely in a mindless eating, living land.
Yes.
Then you had this revelation, and you went to your first yoga class, or I don't know, maybe you had your first glass of smoothie or salad or whatever, homemade meal. How did your body react?
Oh my goodness. I remember I decided to buy a juicer and make myself a green juice. And I'd never had one before. And I was like, yes, I'm going to make myself a green juice. I'm seeing all these people on the internet drinking green juice. I'm going to do it. So I made this green juice, and my husband took a photo of me taking a sip, and my whole face is just like, oh, it was just the most awful thing, because I didn't really know how to do it. I just chucked a whole bunch of greens in. And, but my body felt alive. Like after I got it down, because I forced myself to drink it, it was like I could feel my cells taking in the nutrition. It was astonishing. And that for me was like, oh, wow, this is actually something really important. And that really helped motivate me as well. Like as I started changing my nutrition, changing what I was eating, getting away from, and because I was still working at this point while I was studying. So I'm on the airline now, and I realized then, don't eat the food. Just because they're putting the food in front of you, you don't have to eat it. So I started refusing the meals, and I started making sure I had healthy snacks at least on me, or that I would have some sort of healthy whole food meal before I got on the plane. So it just became about planning a little bit to get around it. So it actually wasn't that hard, but it was just, I was so mindless and so lacking in education about it, even though I was a healthcare professional.
Correct.
Yeah,
But the
that,
underlying word here is planning.
yes, absolutely.
Without planning,
Absolutely.
it's difficult.
It's very difficult. Yeah. But when you're thinking in that planning mode, it's actually very easy to do.
So
It's
you
very easy to
slowly
do.
became mindful. You started become
I did.
that mindless to mindful.
I love that, Deepa. I've never thought about it like that before, but that's
Yeah.
exactly the transition that happened. And then as I went to Bali and did my yoga teacher training, and about a month later, this
Hmm.
is about close to 6 months after I started studying nutrition,
Hmm.
I got laid off, which was amazing. I was so happy. I was so happy
Yeah.
to get laid off
Yeah.
because it meant it was I saw it at the time, and I still do, as a sign the universe was saying, here you go. This is
Yes.
your time. You've made the steps. I'm giving you the ability to do this.
Yeah.
So I didn't actually have to make, well, I did make a conscious decision to walk away because I did get laid off, but immediately a job offer came up, and I
Hmm.
had to then go, oh, how serious am I? Am I going to walk away from this or not? And I have heard, that you do get these tests, along the
Yeah.
way. And I felt like it was a test, and it was really hard to sort of say no, but I did. I didn't even enter into an interview process. I just said no.
Yeah.
And I studied full time. I started teaching yoga at a local
Hmm.
studio, which was a joy. And I still teach
Wow.
at that same studio, albeit
Wow.
now, via video link at the
Yeah.
moment because of
Sure.
our current situation. But it's, my life now is so different, and I like to joke that I've come from the dark side into the light. But
Yes.
having said that, I still am very supportive of conventional medicine. I think pharmaceuticals have a wonderful place, but I also feel like we depend probably too much on that sickness model, and
Yeah.
that the wellness model, where we prevent illness, is a much more sustainable model for us, because there's so much we can do
Yeah.
for ourselves in terms of food, in terms of our mental health, without going down the pathway of sickness.
Absolutely. I mean, the medication has become a mainstream treatment
Yes,
where it should be a supplementary treatment, because how can we survive? How can even medicine be effective if we are not fueling our body correctly?
absolutely.
Because I always tell
Absolutely.
people that food, I mean, we are made up of food basically, right? We are
Yes,
made up of
yes,
nutrients and minerals and antioxidants and all that stuff. And if we don't ingest that, I mean, what's the point, right?
exactly.
And what I
Exactly.
really liked about, I was on your website and I liked that quote that you had, that when body is nourished, the mind is then mind stays focused and calm.
Yes,
And that messaging is so important right now,
yes,
uh,
yes,
to have calmer mind, even though there is so much uncertainty around us.
yes,
And this crisis, like, how you felt relieved, I would say, after you were laid off from your job.
yes,
I
yes,
think this the higher power has given us this pause to reset us. I mean, it's very painful for small businesses. You are a
yes,
business person. I'm in
yes,
business, and it is hurtful. It's painful. It's financially damaging.
yes,
But we can morph out of it, you know, in
yes,
much better, creatively, physically, all that stuff.
yes,
And I think you sharing your stress management techniques is going to be valuable. So, so take it over. What should we do when we are going nuts here?
Look, there is just so much. I always start when I'm working with clients. The first thing I start with is the breath, because it's something that we can all do from moment to moment, is control our breath. And it doesn't mean you have to change major pieces of your diet, which a lot of people find very difficult and challenging. So let's start with something easy with breath control. And I learned belly breathing many years ago when I first started doing yoga. In fact, my very first yoga teacher taught belly breathing, and she said to us in the class, now that you've learned this, do it all of the time. Don't wait till you come to a yoga class. Do it all of the time. When you're doing the housework, when you're doing the shopping, when you're doing the cooking, whatever it is you're doing, do the belly breathing, and you will keep your nervous system in that calm state. So I'll get into what belly breathing is in a minute, but the way that the belly breathing works in your body is it actually works on your fight and flight system. So we have our fight and flight system, which I think most people will understand what that is.
And right now everybody is in fight mode.
Yes, totally.
So I'm going to interrupt you and take a step back here. Let's say right now my mind is just racing. Okay,
yes.
I am worried. I'm a ball of anxiety. I'm feeling depressed. I don't know what's happening. All that stuff.
Yes.
Is there like one thing which will at least get me on the path of even breathing? What should I do? How should I bring my mind to,
see, I would say breathe. I would say breathe. When I was a nursing student, I worked in the emergency department, right? And you would get people coming in, and when people are coming into the emergency department, they are in full fight and flight mode because either something really bad has happened to them or to one of their relatives or friends. So you're getting people constantly in that are in this fight and flight. When you're in fight and flight, your breathing rate gets very rapid because your body's trying to get more oxygen in, so to get that out to the muscles so you can run away or you can fight. So your breathing's quite fast. Now, the breathing is voluntary and involuntary. We have two aspects, but we do, because we have that voluntary aspect, we can control it. We can't control our heart rate. We can't, for most of us, there may be some people that can do it, but for most of us, we can't go, okay, I'm just going to slow my heart rate down now. We can't do that, but we can slow our breathing down. So when patients or relatives used to come in this fight and flight, which was everybody, the first thing we would say is, okay, now just takes a few deep breaths for me. And that when you give someone that simple instruction, they can do that. Even if you've had a very significant physical injury, you can go, okay, I can take a deep breath and I can take another deep breath. And even though that may not be the specific belly breathing technique, just to breathe. And you see it all the time in, like, on Instagram, you see just breathe. And it sounds very, wishy-washy, but in fact, it's incredibly important. Once you start to take control of the breath and breathe, it can be a bit of a pattern interrupter. So it can stop the brain a little bit from being all over the place. You just go, okay, yes, I can breathe. I can do that. So even if you just take a few deep breaths, that can help start to calm the nervous system, because it works directly on the hypothalamus in the brain, which is like your control center for your fight and flight, and the opposing nervous system, which is called rest and digest in layman's terms. So when we can start to bring down that fight and flight, your rest and digest will come up. So these nervous systems are in like a balancing act. They can't both be high at the same time, and they can't both be low. They're constantly in a balance is what we want. So by just starting that breathing process, what we are doing is we're saying to the hypothalamus, the threat is gone, we're okay, we can dial back that stress response just by controlling the breath. And when we do belly breathing, it's just that next level of focus that helps us to ground in and start to calm. Now, of course, it's not the antidote to everything, but it is part of the puzzle. It's part of a formula or a management plan to start to manage stress and anxiety. So if you like, I can do a little demonstration.
Please do.
Now,
I was doing it while you were talking. It feels so, no, really, it keeps you,
it calms, at least it's a starting point. It is a starting point. And when you do it all of the time, it just starts to keep your nervous system at that lower level. So when I'm teaching people to do this, I say, place one hand on the chest, one hand on the tummy, and close the eyes and just take a normal breath in and out. And then next breath in, fill the belly up with air first. and then the mid chest and the upper chest. Exhale from the upper chest and the mid chest and the belly. Hug the belly in. Inhale into the belly and the mid chest and the upper chest. Exhale from the upper chest, the mid chest and the belly, hugging it in. Inhale into the belly and continue at your own pace, just allowing the breath to flow, but in that segmented way. You're not holding the breath at any point. You're just doing this in your own pace. If at any point you start to feel uncomfortable with this style of breathing, then simply go back to your normal breath. But we'll take a couple more breaths in this way. And then next time you exhale, return to normal breathing and remove the hands and just feel into your body and mind.
This is amazing.
Now, it is, isn't it? It just calms everything down. And it doesn't take for it. We probably did maybe 30 seconds or 40 seconds. So the research tells us it can take up to 10 minutes for this technique to work. So depends where you're at in your stress response. At the moment, I think it's important to know that our stress response was only designed to be activated for 20 to 30 seconds to get us out of trouble when we were cave people.
Yeah.
So at the moment, we're under a lot of stress for a long, long period of time. So any of these little techniques that we can do to help bring that stress down is going to be very, very helpful. Because when we are in our stress response, we're using a few things. We're using our nutritional resources, but what also is happening is because the blood is going out to the muscles so we can run or fight, it's decreasing blood and oxygen to the digestive system, so that all slows down, and it also to the reproductive system. So, because obviously reproduction isn't a priority when we are in our stress response and we're fighting for our lives. So it's important to know that it's, yes, it's going to interrupt our sleep, our stress, and it might make us feel wired, and it can do a whole bunch of things, but it's also going to impact our gut health. And we know our gut health is really, really important, and particularly for our immune system, and also our reproductive system. So there may be menstrual issues, there may be fertility issues. So this is all really, really important, and it's all interconnected.
Absolutely. Thank you. What's next? What other technique can people...
Okay. Yeah, so mindful movement, I think, is really important as well. So when we do mindful movement, we know with mindfulness, for example, there's been a lot of research done in mindfulness meditation. I think mindful movement can kind of come into that same bracket. So we start with the movement. Mindful movement is very slow. It's very thoughtful, and it is about keeping very present. So being exactly aware. And that's why when you do yoga, your instructor will say, put your hand here and put your foot there, and your eye gaze over your hand, or whatever the instruction is. It's very specific. And it's for the purpose of keeping you present, keeping you very watchful and mindful of where you're putting elements of your body. And that element of mindfulness means that you're helping to stay in your relaxation response, so that rest and digest, and dial back that stress response. Because the present is the only place where anything can actually happen. If we are thinking about the past, that can lead to regret. Yeah. It can lead to ruminating. We can't do anything about the past. So there's no point in sitting in that and kind of, just going over and over conversations that you might have had, or things that you didn't, I could have done that better. It doesn't matter really anymore, as long as you've learned from that. Yeah. The present is the only thing where anything can happen. The future, we can plan. Hey, I was just saying to you, Deepa, before, I had planned to come to Chicago in August, but that hasn't happened. So we don't know what's going to happen this afternoon or tomorrow. Yeah. You just told me that today you found, was it today or yesterday, you found out you've got another 30 days of lockdown. So you
Correct.
didn't know that. So you might have been
I know.
planning. Yeah. So we don't know what's going to happen in the
Um,
next moments, the next days and weeks. So to
uh,
be worrying about it.
yeah, I mean, dwelling is going to be our worst enemy at this point. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Dwelling and
Yes. And worrying.
searching for certainty. I think uncertainty is the only certain things I can see,
Yes.
you know.
Yes. So then it becomes about what can I control in my environment right now. So I can control how much media I'm consuming. So I personally have made, after about week 1 or 2 of this, I made a conscious decision to only look at the news once or twice a day.
Okay.
So, because I was obsessed with it. The first couple of weeks, I was just, because everything was happening so quickly, and
Yeah.
we're watching what was going on around the world, and it was so stressful. I walked around for the first 2 weeks with a big fist inside my chest. And I know about all of this stuff and anxiety management and stress, and I was still not sleeping. I was walking around, and then I was like, enough.
Exactly.
Take back control of what you can control. So I'm now controlling my exposure to news, and I'm keeping informed, but I'm not watching it constantly throughout the day, because nothing's really changing that quickly on an hourly basis. So there's no need to do that. You just drive yourself crazy. And that's the same with some social media. If you've got people posting doom and gloom all day, block them. You can put like a temporary restriction on that so that you're still friends, but you don't need to see that negative stuff. And so just being very controlling of the information you're getting exposed to, and looking at your environment. What can you do to make your environment more pleasant to be in? So whether that is being tidy in your space. Being tidy in your space can make a real difference to how you feel on an energetic level. It can make you feel calmer. If everything's where it needs to be, it can make you feel a lot calmer than having just stuff everywhere. And particularly because many people are working from home now where they weren't.
Yes.
If you're working at your dining table, and for some of us that's a necessity, at the end of your workday, clear it all up.
Yeah.
Put it somewhere so that you don't have to look at it, you don't have to sit and have your dinner next to it. Just things that you can do to control what you're thinking about and what you're doing. And I also think at the moment, that's where nutrition comes in a big way.
Good time.
Because as you know, food is so related to emotion. A lot of people are comfort eating. I know in Australia at the moment, the sales of alcohol have gone through the roof.
The baking, baking has gone up. Sugar consumption has gone up. Lot of takeouts are happening, and first few weeks I kind of avoided kind of being judgmental about it. That I understand that people were looking for comfort, and but if this is going to be our new reality, we better get our act together in terms of nutrition.
Absolutely.
Physical activity, because this not only this virus, some other infection will show up. And if we continue to eat and drink mindlessly and feel sorry for ourselves, and I'm going to, oh my God, everything looks so dark right now, and I'm going to have 15 cookies. If we get stuck in that, the darkness is going to get even worse.
Well, this is the thing, because what we have to understand, and you said it before, Deepa, is that what we eat becomes us. And it's so true. Like, we are the nutrients. When I teach mindful eating, we talk about the fact that you're appreciating the journey. Like, even if you're looking at like an almond, for example, the journey, the fact that it's been in the ground, that there's been water, there's been sun, there's been earth, there's been a farmer, and then the whole journey that piece of food takes to get into your hands. And then when you eat that almond, the elements of that become part of your cell structure. We use it for energy. We might become part of your skin. It might become part of your bones. It's like amazing.
It's amazing.
If you're putting in a lot of junk, that's what's going inside you. That's what's becoming part of you. And that's why you feel pretty awful afterwards.
And people I mean, you do coaching and all that good stuff, and people say, oh, you know, I rather, they want, not they want, but people expect coach. It's a coaching, not like policing. You know what I mean? I said, I'm
Yes,
here to help you, not police you, because your
exactly.
body is your own police.
Yes,
If you're
yes,
if you're feeling horrible after eating burger, what, I mean, what is Deepa going to do, or what is
yes,
Susie going
exactly.
to say? Your body has already told you. you know
Exactly.
so it goes back to your point about mindfulness, is listen to your body and your
Yes.
mind, and I believe that these small techniques that you're talking about will make our mind more
Absolutely. And
sharper.
that's where when you can do mindful movement like yoga, and there is so much accessibility to yoga right now. There's so much
Hmm.
free yoga online, and there's some really great paid yoga as well. Like, support your local yoga studio. I'm sure in
Hmm.
America they're
Yeah,
all doing their classes online through
correct.
the yoga conferencing as well. So
Yeah.
if you can support these small businesses, then that's fantastic. If you're not in a position to do that, then there's plenty of free stuff around as well. And by teaching yourself to be, and it's going to sound a bit woo, in your body. So
Yes.
rather than being all up in your head all of the time, teaching yourself, and mindful movement does this, to be present in your body, it calms the nervous system, because at that point, you're not planning, you're not looking ahead, you're not regretting, you're not thinking about the past. You are fully present on your yoga mat, in your home, or wherever you're doing it. And that gives your nervous system time to calm down. And that has long-term effects. I was actually speaking to someone, I think it was a day or two ago, and they said to me, I've been doing yoga for just the past 2 weeks. I'd spoken to her 2 weeks ago. I said, yeah, I think you need to go and do some yoga. And she goes, I've been doing yoga every day for 2 weeks, and I am actually a different person. She
Wow.
actually said this to me, I'm a different person. I'm
Yes.
so much calmer. I feel so much better about myself,
Yeah.
because as you know, as you do yoga, I love it because almost anyone can do it.
Hmm.
Pick a style that's going to
Yeah.
suit your body and your lifestyle. But yeah, you realize, you see benefit within a
Yeah.
week. So that's very motivating, and it
Absolutely.
just calms you.
Yes.
Mm.
Very quickly, how important it is to uh, get into some sort of a hobby at this point, not hobby, but dig through your soul and
Yes,
figure out, can you touch on that? Like, I want
yes,
people to move away from the phones, and and and
yes.
and maybe it's knitting, and maybe it's cutting,
Mm.
and I don't know, some sort of
Yes.
a hobby. How do
At the
you?
moment, yeah, we are spending so much time in front of our screens. And again, these are conversations I'm having with people at the moment. Whereas I may have used to see all my clients face to face, now I'm seeing all of my clients on a screen. And even though, yes, it's a video conference and we're having an interaction, we're still getting exposed to that screen. And then, because we're not going out at night, we're watching TV, or we're getting on our phones or our iPads or whatever, and watching more screen. So our screen time is going through the roof, and that's really not good for our brains for a number of reasons. But also, it we need that break. We need to feel something. I think when we get in our screens, there's this something. It's a bit intangible to explain from my point of view, but yeah, you kind of can get into this kind of zombie-like state where
Yes.
just you're not
Very
thinking,
mechanical.
very mechanical, very mindless,
Yeah.
not thinking. And if you can take this time to do something, and it doesn't have to be learning. I know there's been a bit of a movement about, coming out of this process with a new skill or something like that.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily about that, but maybe doing some self-reflection. So
Yeah.
maybe, doing 5 minutes of deep breathing
Yeah.
every night, setting that self, sort of scheduling that for yourself. Maybe having dinner not in front of the TV, having dinner, whether you live alone or you live with other people, family or housemates or whatever, then eat together and have a conversation
Yeah.
without screens around, so that you are connecting on a deeper level, and it's not just mindless time. even just going out, if you're lucky enough to have a backyard, to go out and stand in the backyard or lie down in the grass or whatever and feel the
Yeah.
sun on your skin and breathe in that air that's not, you know, air conditioning or heating or whatever it is wherever you are in the world, and to appreciate every element of nature around you, to go back to playing board games or something like that, that's just,
I
no,
know.
it's a bit better for the brain, and
We
it's
have
kind of
taken
fun.
so many things for granted,
Yes,
right? We have
yes,
taken so many simple pleasures of life for granted, you know.
yes, yes,
So, and I really, really, really hope that that what you are telling us about mindfulness and just that breathing, the messaging about breathing
mm, mm.
as a
It's
starting
huge,
point,
huge.
and is huge, because it's always about starting the car, right? It's always about that starting point when you are feeling so
Yes,
all over the body, outside of
yes,
your outside of your body. That I think that breathing is something, is is the most important message. um,
absolutely. And it's free.
it's free.
And, you know, everybody can do it. You can't say, I can't afford. Well, no, you can breathe. Everyone
Yeah,
can do it.
yeah.
There's no
Every-
excuse.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, Susie, one last thing. I know you have retreats and all that stuff, and I hope, I pray that one day life will go back to normal. Give us a little bit about that. So, if somebody wants to, join
Yeah.
you on
Well,
your
absolutely.
adventure,
Yeah.
rather,
So,
we can.
yes, this time next week, I was supposed to be in Bali leading a retreat, which is very sad. But, you know, next year, the plan is to get that up and running again. So hopefully, I will be able to run beautiful wellness retreats. And so, if you're interested in getting more information about that, my website, susiegarden.com. My Facebook page is Susie Garden Wellness, and Instagram is Susie Garden Wellness. So I put whatever I'm up to goes onto those pages so that everyone can keep up to date. I also have a Facebook group that I run. It's a free Facebook group for stress, fatigue, and anxiety. It's called the Wellness Globe. So again, if you go to my Facebook page, there's information there of how to join that. Yeah, so that's where I'm at the moment, Deepa.
Perfect. Now, this is so useful, and we will put all that information in our newsletter and in the podcast notes as well, because I think a
Thank
lot
you.
of people will benefit from it. Um, Personally, I love Australian accent or British accent. That itself is very therapeutic for me.
Oh, good. Thank you.
So, so it's been a pleasure,
Oh,
and
it's been a pleasure
um,
for me as well, Deepa. Yeah, I'm
I
passionate about this stuff, so I love talking about it.
that's awesome. It shows through. So no, thank you so much again for being on the guest uh, on our podcast. I'm sure our paths will cross again. uh,
Yes, I hope so, Deepa.
I give you an open invitation when the borders are open and planes are flying. If you
Yes,
ever come to Chicago, you have a friend here to meet, and
that would be
a
lovely.
lot of fun. It will be a lot of fun. Again,
Yes.
I wish you the best.
Thank
uh,
you, Deepa, you too. Thank you.
Namaste, and a lot of peace and good health and wealth and everything. Okay. And
Thank you, you too. Thank you very much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
all right. Thanks.